Welcome to the Connect Create Fashion Masterclass, Meet the Masters. Danayi Madondo is a multifaceted fashion practitioner from Zimbabwe. Hailing from a strong lineage of seamstresses and fashionistas, Danayi was born to create and has made her distinct mark on the fashion world both at home and abroad. She is the founder of House of Stone, an internationally celebrated fashion line, and is also part of Black Consultants and works as a stylist and a creative producer. British Council through the Digital Collaboration Agile Grant that helps to promote and enhance the profiles of women in leadership and to support creative skills development.
Hi, I'm Danayi Madondo. I am a multifaceted fashion practitioner and my label is called House of Stone. And I spelled it Haus because I always have to be different. The same way my name, Danayi, is actually spelled with a Y, it's Danayi actually. But yeah, I spelled it Haus because I wanted to stand out, and funnily enough, upon doing my research, I found that House of Stone, spelled Haus, literally means house in German, even in Afrikaans. Like, you know what, it is so funny. I think I spend so much time just focusing on the work that sometimes I even forget what I do in the context of I just want to produce amazing work that lives beyond me. But in terms of what I do, my resume, beyond just being a fashion designer, I'm a visual storyteller. So you'll find that all my campaigns for House of Stone, I'm the one that comes up with them, I art direct them. I've also worked with other artists to art direct certain projects for themselves. I'm also a stylist. I've worked with Tammy Moyo, I've worked with Gemma Griffith, I've worked with Mara Brown, I've worked with Jean Preza. Like, I've worked with, I guess, the people that you should work with. And it's been amazing. I've grown so much. I'm also a project coordinator, specifically for creative projects. So I've done so much work. I've worked with corporates. I've managed to work with Patrick and Mavros, which is an international Zimbabwean brand. I've worked with ZFM. Oh, like, the list goes on and on and on. I probably am not plugging myself as well as I should because I've always found it so difficult to talk about my success. I don't know, maybe it's the culture that I've grown up in, and I'm trying to like sort of break away from that and trying to learn to speak about the things that I've achieved, not as something that is ugly, but something that is positive, and in a way that doesn't come off like I'm bragging, but just accepting that this is what I've done and that's where I've come from and that's how I've contributed, and that's me. You know what? If I look back at my past, I think fashion has always really been a part of my story. I actually think it's actually my bloodline inheritance, but I never really knew it until now. So if someone asks me how I got into fashion, I almost feel like fashion has always been in me. It's called me to be a part of it. My grandmother was a seamstress. She always used to make stuff. My aunt was also a seamstress. People in my family have just always been creative, especially with their hands and especially when it came to clothing. Even when I think about my older sister, she, for me, was my fashion icon. Not even Madonna. It was my older sister was a fashion icon. And it was only later in life when I came across other local Zimbabwean designers that were self-taught, like Moita Marimo, like Skase Bata, like Trish Carmen in like my early days before I even got into fashion and I was more into creating a publication like a Vogue of Zimbabwe, is when I actually decided I want to actually pursue fashion design as a career. And I think the final thing that really triggered me and really pushed me towards doing it is I was watching a TV show and I saw this designer from Nigeria called Segoe Diola. And her pieces, if I was to look at them now, would probably be considered costume. But when I saw her work, I was like, wow, this is art. And I had this feeling of like envy inside. I said, no, I have to do this as a career. So I remember speaking to my dad and saying, Dad, I'd like to go study fashion. And he was like, kuda kusona hembe. And I was like, yeah. And he was just like, okay. And I was like, yes. He wasn't very excited, but I was like, hey, if you're going to give me like the support that I need, that's a good start. So that's what made me pursue fashion and end up studying it in South Africa. it's so jarring to the system. So, for example, when I was in South Africa, even South Africans at the time, 2014, 2013, they considered themselves an emerging industry. They actually would say, our industry is so far behind, we have so far to go. But then you'd come back to Zim and you'd find that the Zim industry had this mentality that we've made it. Yet they were even further behind than South Africa. And their conversation and the way they would speak is, we have a long way to go. So I found that people didn't really have a true understanding and appreciation for what a designer was. I found that they would just put us into one category along with seamstresses, tailors, who are also valuable. Artisans are also valuable, but people didn't know what the difference was between each person's role, although each role is very integral to the entire system of fashion. So it was quite jarring because I realized I had a lot of work to do in terms of educating people, in terms of showing people the value that fashion designers bring to the system, not only to you as an individual, but even to the economy. Like, for example, if you look at France as the standard, France, literally, its GDP is based upon fashion. It's employing people, it's creating jobs, it's creating industry. And I feel like in Zimbabwe, when you're in fashion, it's seen as a hobby. It's not seen as an actual career. It's seen as something that you do as a side hustle, or because you're not serious, you do fashion. But I've always thought that people within the creative sphere are actually some of the hardest working individuals, because we always have to work 10 times more than the average person just to get 10 times less than what the average person gets. So for me, it was very jarring. It was quite disheartening. But what I realized that if this is what I've chosen for myself, that I had to choose to persevere. And I had to figure out what my space was, what my voice was going to be, what I was going to contribute to this sphere, because I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere. Zimbabwe is not going anywhere. My desires, my dreams are not going anywhere. So how am I going to make an impact through my gifting and through my ability and help push this industry forward? So I think that was just my mindset. It took me a while to get there, but just one day I just had to have that trigger and that conversation with myself where I was like, this is bigger than me. I haven't been given these gifts for nothing. I haven't been given this talent for nothing. This is bigger than just me, Danayi, the individual. I belong to a system. I belong to a community. And if I want to see something better for even my own daughter, I need to be bold enough to persevere and to try and do as much as I can within my own capacity to create the change that I want to see. So, yeah.
That's deep.
As you can see, I'm passionate, man. Like, I've always been passionate about fashion and just seeing this industry growing and just seeing the recognition that Zimbabwean creatives deserve, even beyond a fashion space. We have so much to offer the world out of this small country. And I always say, what was last will always be first. I've always held on to that mantra / prophecy about Zim and Zimbabweans. I believe it's true because I actually am seeing it whilst I'm still alive. When you see like the few people that you went to high school with, or even people that you just crossed paths with, no matter where we go, we always seem to stand out above the rest. So it says something about us as a people that wherever we go, we have that X factor. We are hardworking. But it's a matter of us now learning how to work together within this environment. And I think that's the mindset that now truly needs to change, is that true Ubuntu is what I think we need that will really just take us to the next level. Okay, so just to touch on the Vogue part, is I did think it was a big deal. But I think in that moment, I realized that I'd always been seeking validation for my work, not already knowing that my work had value beyond it being represented in Vogue magazine. So luckily for me, or gratefully, thankfully, or whatever it may be, that I've been featured in Vogue 3 times now. And it's funny, you wouldn't really know because you might go to my platforms and you might not even see it there. And it's not necessarily that I don't want to promote myself or brag about what I've been doing or succeeding at. But for me, that's just a small success for me. And the reason why I say it's a small success for me because I want to be on the cover. I don't want to be like passing by, like she happens to be in Vogue or she was in a Vogue article. It's like, I want to be on the cover of Vogue. Then I will scream. But even in being on the cover of Vogue, it's not for the validation. It's just because I just desire to be on Vogue. It's huge. It's a global platform. But if I'm to talk about true moments where I felt like, wow, was when I was invited to showcase at the GT Bank Fashion Weekend. And that year they were focusing on creatives in industry that are leading within the African fashion sphere. And I remember being flown out there and experiencing what one would call a celebrity experience, and actually having an opportunity to showcase amongst other African and international designers who I rate so highly. And I was like, I am literally in the same space, breathing the same air as you are. They have put me on the same level as you. And what that said to me was I should stop thinking small. I should stop seeing myself as less. The fact that someone has seen my work and has said my work is just as good as this person who I also look up to, whom I probably still look up to, means I need to value my own work more. I need to see the value in myself and in the things that I do, and I need to stop waiting for validation. So sometimes when we pursue validation, it can actually be very stunting to one's growth, because then you don't work towards your authenticity. All you're ever working towards is for someone to say, we approve you. So that can actually be very stunting in terms of creative expression. Low points. Oh, wow. I think when I took my first hiatus, I took a hiatus between 2016 up until 2018. That was my lowest point in 2016, because I had actually decided that I was going to stop fashion designing altogether. I was depressed. I just felt defeated by the industry, by the environment. I wasn't mentally well at that time, even physically well. I was a stick back then. The industry had defeated me. I didn't see where I was going. I didn't see what I was contributing to the bigger narrative. I just felt like I was now churning out clothing that other people wanted, but clothing that I didn't necessarily believe in or even want to put out there just in order to make a dollar. So I felt like I was now chasing money, and it made me produce clothing that had no meaning, clothing that didn't even relate to my personal ethos. So it was really defeating. And when I decided to close doors, I remember telling my whole family, yeah, I'm going to announce that I'm quitting House of Stone. I'm done with it. And I remember my family saying, don't announce, just be quiet, do something else for some time. Because luckily for me, I was surrounded by a group of people that really believed in my talent and really believed in what I was doing. And it's thankfully for them, I just went quiet, and people just thought maybe House of Stone is quiet or whatever. But at that time, I did something else. And I think it was important, because when I came back with fire. I came back with fire. So yeah, that was my lowest point. When I got into this fashion game, my mindset was my creativity is all I need. Along the journey, I realized that the business of fashion is literally that. The business of fashion is 80% business, 20% talent. You'll find that sometimes not even the most successful, not even the most innovative designers will probably get more ahead financially and business wise, because they have the business savvy and they know how to market and push even a basic t-shirt. And you will be there spending all your time on this innovative creation for months, working on this collection for months, but you have zero business acumen. So you'll just have an amazing dress that will just remain in your closet and never be seen, never be worn, and you're losing out on the business side. So it's very important that when people decide that they want to go into fashion design, but they want to own their own fashion house, that they also groom themselves with the business acumen that comes with running a fashion house, because it just goes beyond being a fashion designer. I would say, look, you need to have basic accounting, marketing skills. You need to be able to connect with buyers or retail spaces that can actually stock your stuff. You need a reliable manufacturing supply. So all of those elements need to be in order. And a lot of the time as Zimbabweans, we don't have the financial backing, because fashion is actually a capital intensive industry. Like if you ain't got the capital backing you, you really need to be innovative on the business side on seeing how you're going to maneuver your way around. So there's so many elements that make a sustainable fashion business that you need to get yourself clued in on. It's not just about being able to design, draw, go to a seamstress. Do you have a retailer that you're going to supply? Do you have online shopping access? Do you have payment gateways? Are you paying your taxes? You know, all of those like tedious business things that I never really wanted to do when I got into fashion, I realized are very important in order for me to actually have a successful business and a business that's actually going to grow. And at that point, I realized, okay, I'm not good at this. What am I going to do? Do I groom myself or do I partner up with someone else? And you find that some of the greatest fashion brands that exist today, it's usually a duo that couple up. One person will focus primarily on the business, the other person will focus on the design. And sometimes they will outsource their marketing to an agency, because there's so many emerging agencies that sometimes you don't need to deal with it yourself. But sometimes, depending on your funding, you might actually have to do it yourself. It becomes a full-time job. I think if you have plans for weekend mafaro, as I put it, you might as well put that aside, because it's going to take all of you. I remember my first year, my dad always said to me, "You're always in the cottage, always sewing, you're always working, and we're not seeing the money." And literally that's what it was like for the first year of my business. Was I was always working, I was always in the cottage, and there was no real money being seen, because I'd always have to put it back into the business. And as the business grows, you put it back into the business. So yeah, if you want to do real business, it's not pretty. If you were to see me, like right now, I might look presentable, but most of the time I'll be in sweatpants, a t-shirt. You'll see me downtown looking for fabric or the best options or the best deal, so that I can give my customer the best deal, trying to figure out like how to price your product the right way for your target market, trying to figure out how you're going to reach that target market. I've categorized myself as a lifestyle fashion brand, meaning I'm going to have to position my product wherever there is summer, wherever there's a coastal holiday experience happening. It means Victoria Falls, Cape Town. How am I going to ship my product there? What retailers are out there? Do they want my product? At what price point do the clients that are going to be purchasing my product that side want it for? There are all these things that you need to consider, which are like, honestly, they're not the most exciting for me, because I'm like, I just want to make beautiful dresses, have photo shoots, tell stories. The glamorous part, the runway, like that's what I thought it was about when I signed up. But when I really decided that, look, I'm also an adult now, I have bills to pay, I have things to do, I need a functioning business, I had to figure out all those other things. So it sounds exciting, but there's a lot of work that comes into it. It's not cute and it's not as glamorous. The glamorous is 1%. Yeah. Well, I'm starting to see that sometimes it does pay to talk about yourself, but I've always believed that your work should speak louder than your voice. And I think I've always used that as one of my ways forward, is that let the work speak for itself, because for me, I'm a testament that the work speaks for itself, the work opens doors. Might be quicker if I did speak about it, but ultimately, true genius, true creativity, it speaks for itself. And that's why I've managed to be spotted and put on all these platforms, why people have invited me over internationally to be on Paris Fashion Week summits. Like, I've been in all these spaces beyond the world or the country that I work within. They've identified my work because it's a visual work that I do, and they've said this is excellent. So for me, I always strive to make sure that above and beyond what I say with my mouth when I meet someone, that the work speaks for itself, and that whatever I say is more so supporting it rather than trying to sell it. It should sell itself. So even when I want to work with a creative and they say, oh, I'm a videographer, I'm a this, I'm a that, I always say, can I see your work? Because your work will speak for itself more than you can. You might not even be able to even market your work well enough. And you find that a lot of artists, we don't know how to speak. We don't know how to market ourselves. So we really rely on the work to speak on our behalf. But I think it definitely is a skill that most creatives should work on improving, because you find a lot of the time that the greatest creatives lose work to people that are good at speaking who can't even create anything. And it's a shame. It's a shame. It actually makes me want to cry, because it's like, this person is so talented, but simply because they don't know how to pitch themselves, sell themselves, they're losing out on so many opportunities that are going to people who are an amazing talker, but is not a producer. So stuff like that crushes me. I have to be honest. Yeah.
Do you think there needs to be if I'm a fashion designer, say, oh, look, I'm just really good at...
I would always say be authentic to who you are. Know what you want to contribute through fashion. Know where you want to fit. Have some form of way of defining your contribution for yourself, and experiment, especially at the beginning of any journey. I always say, through experimentation, you also discover your voice if you don't know what it is. You also discover your rhythm. Don't be afraid to fail. Through failure, you grow. Never see failure as actually failure. That's just an opportunity to grow and to understand your own working rhythm. I don't even think that word should exist. To me, it's actually an ugly word because it actually stunts growth. So yeah, don't be afraid to experiment, to explore, to try out different things. Don't be afraid to intern with people that you look up to. Go out there, put yourself out. Don't be afraid of someone saying no to you because, hey, you were never doing it to begin with, so what have you lost out? So have boldness in your journey and never be afraid of a no. Okay, guys, so I'm a storyteller, as I said. So for me, I feel like one of my taglines is cloth to tell. I make clothing to tell stories, to impact stories, to in a sense, archive that I was here, to archive what was happening in Zim at a specific moment in time, the spaces. But if you want to find me as a fashion designer, you find me at House of Stone, HAUS, of Stone on all platforms. I'm also a stylist, art director, conceptualist. You can find me on Black Consultants, which is spelled BLBK, on all platforms, Black Consultants. And that's pretty much me in a small little nutshell. When you go on those platforms, please reach out to me. You can slide into the DMs, you can email me, get in touch, have any further questions. I'm a very easygoing person. And I love to spread the love and I love to spread the knowledge. So, yeah.
That brings us to the end of this masterclass. Thank you for watching Connect Create. Did you enjoy this masterclass? Make sure you like, share, and follow us on all our social media platforms. If you would like to receive exclusive content and behind the scenes of this masterclass, make sure you click the link in the description and sign up for the Connect Create directory. This project was brought to you by AfriDigital in partnership with creativestribe.zw, supported by the British Council through the Digital Collaboration Agile Grant that helps to promote and enhance the profiles of women in leadership and to support creative skills development.